Howdy, folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. I am back for our 99th episode, rolling right around to the 100 with my co-host, David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. Thank you for being on board with me.
And greetings and blessings to y'all, and we hope that this finds you as well as possible. There's some sicknesses is going around out there, and I'm also in this first little bit want to ask for a prayer for my buddy Rob, who I've talked about several times. His father is in the hospital getting a stent and having heart issues, just like I was having, and so send a prayer out to my buddy Rob, our buddy Rob, and that his pop gets better too. So, and many prayers to everybody else out there.
Absolutely. We don't want anybody to have hard, bad times. And
No,
not a good thing, not in this day and age anyway.
And things will sneak up on you when there's a lot of folks who younger than me who are having heart issues, and it's just amazing, that I have to have a heart issue, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, I do, and this person does, and oh yeah, I had I had to go to the hospital the other day because I had a heart. Oh my goodness, I had no idea the amount of heart problems going on with people. So we really do need to be heart healthy. That's for dadgum sure.
Absolutely.
And, I apologize ahead of time, all y'all. I'm on the cell phone instead of my computer, and I got to let the dog out.
Well,
so who let the dog out? Me.
Who let the dog out?
Who let my dog out? Who.
It's good to be here. It's good to be back. Tonight, as you can see by the background, we are going to talk about Columbus. I was supposed to do this last week, but it just gave me a little more time to do a lot more research. So we're going to have some new spin on things to make your head wonder what the heck is going on. But anyway, I got a new book, and I was researching that, which kind of put me on to this. And it makes me wonder. So what I'm going to start out talking about is Columbus. Everybody knows that Columbus in 1492 sailed the ocean blue, right? Okay.
Yep.
3 ships, the Pinta Anum and the Santa Maria. And they came across, and so forth and so on. Now, does anybody ask the question, why Columbus? What? Was he just some handsome, charming dude? Was he special? Was he rich and famous? Well, none of the above. None of the above. I think, from what I've researched, Columbus had charisma, and he was, a little above. He wasn't the quiet kind of guy to sit in the dark, in the background. Nor was he a man without wisdom or knowledge. He had much knowledge and a lot of wisdom, and he'd been around the block a few times. He had went north sailing. He was a sailor. He was a map maker. He worked for a map maker in his younger days. He was a slave trader. He did a little bit of everything about maneuvering things around, basically shuffling goods, trying to find deals, trading with people and countries. So he was good at that all the way around. Now, as we know, here I'm going to present a few things. We'll just get on to this. And while David's doing the thing, if you got anything to say, David, you just let me know.
No, I'm listening.
Okay.
I was going to say charisma. He had to have charisma
Yes.
because didn't he, sweet talk the Queen of Spain?
Well, and that's what we're going to get into.
I'm ahead of myself.
Yeah. Did he? You asked a good question. Did he sweet talk the Queen of Spain? Now,
Well, he had somebody had to get convinced to allow him to go on such an adventure. I
yeah.
mean, think about 1492 sailing the ocean blue. That was not an easy thing. It was not an easy task.
So I sat down and I broke down some things like, well, why couldn't other people cross the Atlantic Ocean? Was there some kind of barrier there that kept other people from sailing across? Why could Columbus do it and nobody else could? Was there, there's millions of people, thousands and thousands of ships for hundreds of years. Was it the ships not good enough? Obviously, Columbus's ships weren't nothing to speak of. I mean, one ship was just basically an open boat with a, mast in the middle and guys standing out in the elements day and night. You had one big cruiser, and the other two were smaller ships of, you had one galleon and the rest were kind of, so-so ships. And now the Spanish had good ships. There was lots of boats. They've been making boats for hundreds of years. Technically, they had boats that could cross the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, way back 3000 BC, believe it or not. Ships haven't changed that much. They changed, but they've been sailing plenty. And if you could cross the Mediterranean, you could cross all these things. You could cross. Oh, hey, people did. In Egyptian.
Mostly because the boats were open. Yes, like the Viking boats and the Greeks' boats. That's what happened to dadgummit, the guy from Troy that went home and got lost.
The what?
The guy on his way from home from Troy.
Oh, yeah.
Who got lost in the Mediterranean.
Yeah, I don't remember his name.
Yeah, but anyway, open boats.
Yeah, they had open boats, and I'm sure they had some sort of covered boats of that too. But the thing is they had boats, and when Columbus went over, he had open boats too. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna say I can't take an open boat. I got to have a covered boat. He did. He had one covered boat and two open boats, basically. We think of it, he had big Spanish galleons that were yes, he had one. The other two were kind of smaller, and one was an open boat. So anyway, the point is that why is it only Columbus that could go? So Columbus at the time went to the Queen. But before he went to the Queen, he went to all the countries asking for, hey, I want to go and, go across the ocean, and I want to explore. And each country denied him. Now,
so can I throw something in here?
Yes.
He had to have a selling point.
Yes, and I think he did.
All right. Do you have any information about what his angle was?
Well, he had a map. He had gotten a map from a Portuguese sailor. And it was no secret that, he could have looked it up in different writings. And as I can read here, back in Greek times, Alexander the Great, in a book entitled Famulus, gives a sort of dialogue between Midas and Pelagotherian Celesius. The book itself is lost, but Strabo refers to it, and these are Greek names. Alesius has given us the substance of the dialogue that followed. And it goes like this. After much conversation, Celestius and Midas, that Europe, Asia, and Africa were but islands surrounded on all sides by the sea, but there was a continent situated beyond these, which was of immense dimensions, even without limits, and that it was so luxuriant as to produce animals of dialogues magnitude, and men grew to double the height of themselves, and that they lived to far greater age, that they had many great cities, and their usages of laws were different from ours, and that in one city there were more than 1,000,000 inhabitants, that the gold and silver there were in vast quantities. So anyway, that's just an abstract of a book from 200 AD.
Suggesting giants.
Yes. Okay. Some places it says here the Carthaginians, the Carthaginians were of the greatest prosperity, and they, but the exact time is unknown. Some place, his time 40 to 140 years before the founding of Rome, which would be almost 800 years before our era. He was an officer of great enterprise and have sailed around and explored the coast of Africa, set out for the Pillars of Hercules, and now called the Straits of Gibraltar, sailed westward. He sailed west 30 days. Hence, it is inferred by many that he must have visited America for some of the islands. And he wrote a book entitled Perpetuus, giving an account of his voyages, which transmitted in 1530, didn't get translated until 1533. But that doesn't mean Columbus couldn't have read it. Let's see. Celestius says that some Phoenicians were cast upon the most fertile island opposite of Africa. And of this, he says he kept most of the studies secrecy. And doubtless occasions there. Okay, Celestius lived about 100 years before Christ. Islands lying west of Europe and Africa are certainly mentioned by Homer and Horace, and they were called Atlantides and were supposed to be about 10,000 furlongs from Africa. Then it goes on towards Africa in the west, immense island in the broad sea, many days sail from Libya. Its soil is very fertile, and its surface ray-graded with mountains and valleys. Its coasts are indented with many navigable rivers, and its fields are well cultivated, delicious gardens and various kinds of plants and trees. He finally sets down as the finest country known, where the inhabitants, spacious dwellings, and everything in the greatest plenty. To say the least of this account of Dictorius corresponds very well with that given of the Mexicans when they were first known as by the Spaniards. Okay, even Plato, who lived hundreds of years before that, account has well weighed perhaps with the ancients, and he lived 400 years before the Christian era. Okay, and of course he talks about an island in the mouth of the sea, and of course that's the Pillar of Hercules and blah, blah, blah. And he talks about Atlantis and so forth and so on. Okay, but the important part, he said, Christian era. Okay, what do we know about all of this? And what we know is that, Columbus may have had a rough and crude map of this sort. And to you and me, it doesn't make much sense, but to Columbus, this would make a lot of sense. Okay, so here's what my spiel about this whole thing is that back in the day, Rome, the Egyptians, which we know the Egyptians had cocoa in their tombs, which is only found in South America. Okay. Well, what happens is the Romans were trading because they found wrecked Roman boats off the coast of South America. They were talking about it in these books. So somebody must have went there. The problem is when the great Roman Empire fell, the money to send people over there and do the trading, kind of collapsed too, because now people didn't have, there was the Dark Ages. With the reemergence of the new Roman Empire, or the new empire, which was the Christian era, now all these city-states broke into, tribes. They were fighting among themselves. Technology was lost. Maps were lost. People didn't have that trading ability anymore. There wasn't nothing to trade with, or nobody to trade. They were more about conquering other lands, because everything broke apart into, chaos. You know what I'm saying? Once the you could say the big mighty empire fell. Well, when the new empires arose, they were all in separate pieces, different countries. There was France and Germany, Prussia, there was England, there was all these different places with different kings and kingdoms. But the one thing that stayed steady was the religion, right? Now, if the religion, meaning Christianity, which was just starting to come about, was in its infancy, of course it wouldn't want anybody to travel to these foreign lands where they may have more technology, a different religion to compete with, land where giants live, or millions and millions of other people in great cities, right? Because if you go over there, they may, say, hey, we're going to go over there and we're going to conquer you. Now, the Christian religion was still kind of in its infancy, hadn't won everybody over. And so therefore, what we all know what happened. They invented lies. The earth is now flat. If you go too far, you'll fall off the edge of the earth. The ocean will swallow you up. The devil lives on the other side, right? And
Of course.
And what does the religion do? They rule by fear and lies. So what I'm saying is that even if you had a map like this, you would be too afraid to go there. Or even if you did, you come back, the church may have you, arrested and hung for treachery or witchery. Who are you to go over to these foreign countries? Now, you say, well, if we could go over there, how come they didn't come here? And they did. In 2 instances, back in the day, natives in boats during the Roman Empire, and another one later on of natives from the Americas had come over to here. Now, they couldn't go back, but they did come here. And it's a well-noted thing. Anyway.
Oh, Gilligan's Island.
Pretty much, we got blown off course in our canoe or our boat, and we ended up in Europe, but we don't know how to get back.
Hi, everybody. We're from over there.
Yeah, the technology was lost. I mean, you would speak a totally different language. I mean, you know as well as I do that the church controlled everything. It controlled your thoughts, your thinking, what you did, and what I think happened is the church said, don't let anybody go. But one day they found a candidate. His name was Columbus. And when Columbus went and set sail, he went over there. He brought back some natives. He brought back some birds. He brought some feathers and things and plants and things like that back. He brought gold. So, and what did he do when he arrived? He made a big spectacle of it all. He had a parade down the street to the castle to present his stuff to the queen and king. Okay, so you're saying, well, did Columbus know? Of course he did. He knew. Okay, when he went to all those other countries, they denied him. And even when he went to Queen Isabella and Ferdinand, they denied him. But as he left town, they called him back, like I said. And then they said, yep, you can go. So I think that he already knew what was there, and they said, you're going to be our man. And what did he do? He signed a contract that said all the lands that he discovered, he gets a portion, and all the riches he brings back, he gets a portion. So, well, wait a minute. He's supposed to be going on a trip to the West Indies, to China, to India. Now, wait a minute. They already knew that the Indies had Indians, and there was great empires in China and Japan. What would he do over there? Walk up there, step on their shore, and claim the Chinese empire for his own? Here, you are now part of Spain. That wouldn't have worked. They would have killed him in a heartbeat. Am I right?
Possibly, yep.
Yeah. So he knew all the time. So you say, okay, what did he bring along on his trip to trade with these West Indian people for the spices and find this trade route that he was looking for to the, well, he brought goats, he brought sheep, he brought pigs, he brought horses. Well, wait a minute. They already have that stuff there. Did he bring gold and silver to trade for the spices and the teas and all that good stuff and the silks? Nope, he didn't bring that either. He brought hoes and rakes, shovels and axes, guns. Wait a minute. Swords. Really? So why is Columbus bringing these things like that on his voyage? Because he knew all along where he was going. He knew all along he was going to conquered lands. And what is the one thing that really gave it away to me was when the guy standing, the guy that sits in the little basket at the top of the main, what's that thing called in the main of the boat where the sail is? The mast. The guy that sits up on top of the mast and looks for land, and he looks for rocks and all that kind of stuff. And he's the guy who says, land, I see land. And he yells to all his compadres, he sees land, right?
The guy in the crow's nest.
The crow's nest, that's it. Well, how do I know that Columbus knew where he was going? Is he said, I'm going to give $50 or 50 pounds or shillings or whatever the heck they were at the time to the first man that sees land. Problem number one, the guy in the crow's nest looks out. He says, I see land, ho. Columbus said, yeah, I seen that yesterday. You don't get the money. Wait a minute. So the guy in the crow's nest sees the land. Columbus says, I seen that yesterday. You don't get the money. Well, because he knew where he was going. He might not have known exactly where he was going if he's looking at a map like this. And this is a map. This is the Portuguese map that Columbus would have had. It would have, as you can see, it's hard for us to read, but it does show things. It was found in a Dutch museum, and it's from 1411. So anyway, the point is, well, so then Columbus gets there, he comes back, and right away, all of a sudden, everybody knows the route to get there. And, they send out 20 ships to go explore and conquer the land. And what happens? Each one of those ships brings along, people like Cortez and De Soto to conquer and pummel the land. Here's a map, world map in 1570. And here it is, 1570. This is only, 50 years after Columbus was there and everything, or so, 50, 60 years. And look at this. They already got this whole thing mapped out. They sent ships all the way around, mapped this whole thing out, made all these nice maps of the world, of the globe. Oh my gosh, we already know where everything is, just like that. It just gets me that they could get there. They knew how to go. They knew the trade routes. They knew which way the wind blows. Look at that. South America looks like North America looks like North America. They knew all of this stuff ahead of time. That's what I'm kind of seeing here. And who let them go? I believe that it was the church. The Catholic Church said, it's time, you can go, because we have an army here. Everybody in Europe now believes in Christianity. We are well advanced, and we have boats and ships and people. And first thing they did was send out that group of people, Cortez, De Soto, to go ransack, take the gold, burn all their religious items, kill all their religious people, do away with any of that stuff. And then they brought priests along and Bibles along, as we've read here before, to convert everyone to Christianity. That was their goal. Okay, so, and you think, okay, how is this even possible? Well, even in the books of King Arthur, apparently King Arthur took trips to the Americas. The Vikings took trips to Americas. But then there was that age of darkness. The plagues raged across Europe. The people were weak. And according to these writings, giants lived over in this land with immense fertile fields, and they lived longer than us. Well, that would, what church is going to want to send their people over to fight against giants and, without technology here? And how are you going to convert these people over there if your people aren't even converted yet? So, yes, I think Max has got it right. Christianity means taxation. And that's exactly it. You have companies forming, taxes forming, means that the church can collect on all of that. Because who were the first people they sent over? They sent over the traders, the fur trappers, and the Jesuits to convert all the Indian villages to Christianity. Now, here's more old maps showing the ocean. And how to get across it, the Straits of Gibraltar, here, and going across. This could be Florida and Cuba here, I mean, and this is what Columbus is looking at here. He knows that there's land there. Now, people had been starting to drift. Even the fishermen were drifting across the northern half by Greenland and going down into the areas by Canada and doing a lot of fishing. They had set up, villages. That's why when the northern half set over, they didn't go south. I mean, wouldn't you be afraid to, if you were in England, to set out on a trip to Florida or South America? No, you're going to go north instead. So they knew there was a route to the north. You know what I'm saying? They already knew there was a route to the north to get to the Americas. And when they did, they sent over. Who did they send over in droves? They sent people like the Puritans, the Quakers. They sent over the Pilgrims. All of these people were highly whacked out in the God thing with the Bible stuff. And who better to convert the natives who were, obviously not Christians, would be the most far out raging Christians there absolutely were. Besides that, they were kind of unliked in Europe, so they were expendable. Get rid of them. They get to convert everybody. It's a win-win situation for everybody. So, one of the wackiest ones, we've heard of this guy before. And this guy, okay, and this is with some of their thoughts at the time. This guy here is Reverend Thomas Thorogood. He published a book in 1652 to prove that the Indians were the Jews who had been lost in the world for the space of nearly 2,000 years. Go figure.
How about that one?
Yeah, I'm telling you. Okay. Let's see. Who else was there? We got this guy that we've heard of him before, lived in Salem, Massachusetts. Dr. Cotton Mather. And he talked about the Indians. And of course, it says here, but this author continues. Of course, he wrote a book, as we all know, the Salem witch trials and things like that. And probably the devil seducing the first inhabitants of America or into therein, aimed at having them and their posterity out of the sound of the silver trumpets of the gospel, then to be heard through the Roman Empire. If the devil had any expectation that the peopling of America, he should utterly deprive any Europeans of the two benefits, literature and religion, which dawned upon the miserable world. And it goes on, and he talks about how they were sent here. But our Eliot was such ill terms with the devil as to alarm him with the sounding of silver trumpets in the heaven of this territory. And so I think the 20 several nations, and that's what he says, of Indians upon the spot of ground which fell under the influence of the three united colonies, and our Eliot was willing to rescue as many of them as he could from the old usurping landlord of America, which is the devil, who is by the wrath of God the prince of the world. So they came here realizing that, the Indians didn't believe in God. They didn't know in God. And they thought that the devil ruled this land. He'd been here for thousands of years, just celebrating how good he had it by having all these savages and at his beck and call to do his bidding.
So they came with the intent of conquering evil.
That's right. And like I said, who better to send over than the most convicted of the Christian faith as they possibly could get, but the Puritans, the Quakers, the Pilgrims, anybody who was wacky as that. When the new country was discovered, much inquiry was made into the ascension of whence came the inhabitants found upon it. Okay, not even asking whence they came, like the other animals. And the answer is plain. Man, the other animals, trees, and plants of every kind were placed there by the supreme directing hand which carries on every operation in nature is by fixed and undiluting laws. This, it must be plain to every reader, it is at least as recognizable to the Bible history as the theory of Robertson, which is that Grotius and all those who have followed him. I don't know what that means, but anyway, it's talking about the God, placed all these people here, all the plants, the animals, the trees, and everything like that. And that the devil took over this land, that, when Jesus cast him out or whatever it was, and he couldn't have Europe because, that's Jesus's land. And by this time, the church had basically had the Crusades. They had all of these things wiped. Like I said, they've wiped every single person out that believed in anything else. So, and like you can see by this map, this is an old map too from the 1500s, and they literally know everything that's out here already and on the other side. Okay, so Columbus came. As you can see, he brought lots of weapons. He wasn't going to conquer, all the Chinese empire. And he's telling everybody he's going to the West Indies, which was a scam, so that everybody didn't come and follow him until he got back to present his goods and tell his story. So here you got Columbus meeting up with the natives, and he didn't give a shit about them. You can see I'm in this foreign land. It's not what I've been told. We're just going to conquer these people. And they sent the dogs upon him. They, you can see even in these pictures, it's like they're looking down upon these people like, oh boy, I'm a civilized human and you're a savage. Here's the savages in their boats. And as you can see, they're looking upon the ships in the harbor, and here comes Columbus. And he's saying, look over there, we can turn those into slaves. Okay.
Look, 10 people.
Okay, so to prove my point even more, an English Franciscan mapped the mapped North America from 1330 to 1360. The results was the first scientific map of the New World. Roger Bacon conceived the project. Pope Clement endorsed it in 1265. Oxford deans trained friars in surveying, and King Edward III launched an effort in 1360. Thus, Edward's great-grandson, Prince Henry of Portugal, knew the location of Florida in 1420. And it contains hundreds of illustrations, including the Friar's Map, which is authored in 1995. Okay, so see, they were planning this, and it was the Pope and it was the kings working together over basically hundreds of years, trying to figure out what's over there before we spring the trap. And in the meantime, we're telling all the public that the earth is flat. And anybody who didn't believe that or, follow through, like Galileo, and we know Galileo knew the earth wasn't flat, they got locked up for life.
By the Pope.
By the Pope, yes. Galileo was a very smart man, and they didn't want to kill him, so they just locked him in his house for the rest of his life.
And said he was crazy because they wanted to. They do the same thing now to people. I don't want to divert from the subject, but they do the same thing with people now in the current state of affairs. Oh, there's 10 million people were killed by a bomb. No, but there were people killed, so they want to stretch the truth to, like there are monsters out there. Don't go out there. Woo, it'll eat your ship. Well, if there was a bad storm, you could get tipped over and I've been in bad storms in the Gulf of Mexico, and it ain't no fun. And
That's right. That's right. So, little things in, you know, like in Haiti, for instance, there was a group of Indians there. They ranged about 25,000 that lived on those islands. And once they sent Columbus over there and all the rest of the guys, they basically either converted those Indians, exterminated those Indians, and by the early, what was it, the 1600s, there wasn't one original descendant of the island left. They had either killed everybody or enslaved them all on those islands. So the people who live in Haiti are not the originals. Okay, this guy Gunnar Thompson has wrote multiple books on this, and he shares the story of a mysterious English friar whose passage through time altered the course of world history. In the 14th century, the friar traveled from England to Norway, Iceland, and northern regions in the service of King Edward III. The friar Simon was to survey the isles of North Atlantic in an effort to find the lost. Notice, to find the lost overseas colony of King Arthur. This project entailed discovery of the Western Hemisphere and was proposed by England.
Camelot.
Yeah. Now we know that in the New England area, there's rock there till this day. There's still rock walls. There is, all kinds of things that are, besides the castle sitting there. People mention star forts and other things like that. Roger Bacon, get that? Sir Francis Bacon. Well, this must have been his younger brother. 3 times removed, great grandfather of him. As you know, like any other good, how should I say, kingsmanship, or once you're in the know, just like people in our government, they're all related. And, then their sons and daughters become president, and then they become president, and their sons and daughters, so maybe someday we'll have a little, what's Hillary Clinton's daughter, she's Chelsea, and then she has a kid, maybe her kid will be president someday, and we'll say, yeah, they're just passing it down the line,
Yeah.
Anyway, this project entailed the discovery of the Western Hemisphere and was proposed by England. Now we have evidence of the form of a map and a manuscript confirming that the English Franciscans traveled to the New World at the dawn of the Age of Discovery. At this point in time, the new land was claimed as a sovereign realm under the aegis of King Magnus Ericson, which is a Viking, a ruler of both Norway and Sweden. It is also clear that the friar's map played a crucial role in early Portuguese. Notice I said Portuguese. That's where Columbus got his map from. And Spanish navigation. Okay, remember, Portuguese and Spain were big into traveling boats and things like that. The manuscript reached the hands of Portugal's Prince Henry, the navigator, who was the grandson of the English regent John. See how they stays in the family, Duke of Lancaster, and son Edward III.
Wait. Let's go back just a second. So there was an Englishman who had rights in Spain,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
and now he's Spanish, but with English ties.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just want to kind of point that out because they made deals back in the day. If you do this for me, we'll give you a plot of land and a little house on the prairie. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, they also exchanged, and see, he's saying here's Prince Henry, Portugal, hands of Portugal's Prince Henry, the navigator who was the grandson of an English regent, John Galt, the Duke of Lancaster. So, like I said, his daughter might have married this guy in Portugal, and now they're related. All those high ups marry each other. They don't marry commoners. You
Well,
know,
and I was just pointing out that there's an English tie.
yes,
You
yes,
know,
yes. And so this manuscript script reached the hands of this guy in Portugal from the English. You're going backwards, because it was made in England. Now it's going to Portugal. The fortunate was also known to Bristol merchants who sailed to Newfoundland in the 1840s. So people were going to Newfoundland. Where's Newfoundland?
just north of Canada.
That's right. It's in the Americas. And it was known to Columbus, who reviewed the book prior to his Arctic voyage. So Columbus went north too. He went that way in 1477. And his Venezuelan voyage in 1498, a map of Arctic regions attributed to the friar, appeared in the works of such renowned geographers as Martin Benimi, John Rushi, and blah, blah, blah. Can't even say this.
So he made it all the way to the down to South America in '98.
Yeah, he never made it to the continent land. He only made it to the Cuba,
Oh, okay.
These people deserve a lion's share of the credit. So see, this here part tells me that when Columbus made his discovery and said, I made it to the New World, here's these Indian people, that opened the door. And like I said, the English didn't need to go to South America and follow Columbus's journey. They just went north and followed the coastline all the way around to Newfoundland and then worked their way down the coast, down the Hudson Bay, down the coast to New York, down to where else? Oh, Massachusetts, till they found a good spot that reminded them of England and said, let's settle here. This looks like our home country. You see what I'm saying? They didn't have to go south because in all respects, wouldn't it be scary to say, well, I'm going to go, if Columbus went south and found new land, why would I go north to find new land? See, that would make no sense at all. Right? I mean, if the space shuttle goes up and you're watching it go up and they say, yep, we went into space, why would you get in a make your own spaceship and go sideways? Well, I see the moon. It's over there, over the horizon. I'm going to go that way. But the space shuttle went up this way. But no, I'm going to go this way. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the confusing part. Okay, now we're going to go.
Wait. Let me stop you right there and let me throw in an interject a point.
Yes.
So to me is watching you and listening, and it's very interesting that it seems to me like when Columbus got back, because obviously a lot of other people had already been there.
Yes.
But politically speaking, they chose Columbus as the guy.
Yes.
There were all these other people that did, and they went to, from Norway and all the Vikings and all that. Nobody gave them credit until Columbus.
Yes. And why?
So politically speaking, I wonder what Columbus had on the other guys, but they chose him, in my humble opinion, they chose him to be he found America. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, what about Vasco da Gama and some of these other people? Well, Columbus they chose him. Well, just saying.
Well, look at this.
For whatever reason, they chose him.
Why? Well, yeah. Why would you? That's what the big question is. Why would you choose Columbus to do do this deed, right? And well, let's just look at this picture. Columbus, it has, first off, he can do the journey because he is a sailor. He already knows he's been to, the northern route in some sort of way. He already knows kind of the secret, right? Now he has a map that he's gotten from a Portuguese guy, and he's going around with this map saying, I want to go here. I want to go here. I read the stories like I read here in this book. from the Greeks and the Romans from hundreds of years ago, books that maybe were in print in his time and have gotten lost since. So he's reading these things and saying, well, there's giants over there. Okay. There's gold over there and fertile fields and food and, everything's great over there.
And not only that, if I may interject again, it wasn't just what they read, but as sailors, there were stories that traveled amongst the sailors and the captains.
Exactly.
When they pulled into port, this guy had been up here, and they'd go into the tavern and have a couple of mugs of rum or whatever it is, and, and exchange stories. And, well, we sailed to the tip of, that we call it Newfoundland, and there's great fishing over there, and we traded with some Indians, and, we've been over there.
Yes.
I mean, just talking from sailor to sailor, they would have learned things.
Yes. And that's the thing. The secret was getting out. That's why I'm saying the secret was getting out. And I think the church couldn't hold it back anymore.
I would agree with you on that. I would agree with you.
They've been covering it up. It's kind of like anything else. We've been telling you that the earth is flat. We've been telling you all these things, but people are getting a little smarter now and they don't want to believe us anymore. So we're going to have to open it up, so when Columbus got turned down, I think they sat around and said, this guy, maybe I would look at it like he was going in for an interview.
And think about this. So they changed their mind. So they came in, and then their advisor said, "Hey, wait a minute, Mr. Kingy and Queenie. Think about this, blah, 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 and the church and blah, 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 blah." And they go, "Wait a minute. Okay, call him back."
Yes, exactly. Because this guy's got charisma. He dresses nice. He's from a good family. This guy he knows what to do. He's pretty ruthless. He's been a slave trader. He can make a presentation just like in this picture. Like, look how he's dressing compared to the rest of them. He's gonna make an impression. He is, if he comes back, he's not going to come dressed like this guy here in the background over here. He's going to he's coming down the street like this, parading his spoils of the journey, and which he actually did. He paraded those Indians right up to the Queen's court, and he paraded all his things down, and said, "Look at the gold I found. Look at the Indians I found. Look at this wonderful things, I'm presenting to you." And, and sure, that spectacle of the parade from the boat to the castle probably got spread over the countryside like wildfire. Oh my gosh, Columbus came back with natives. Oh my gosh, he came back with things we've never seen before. Oh my gosh, Columbus came back with gold.
Right.
Whereas before, if Columbus or somebody would have went, say a pirate or, say this lowlife on the end, said he's going to go over there and he came back with some stuff, you know what? He wouldn't be parading. The church probably would have come and found him and said, "You're telling everybody the world isn't flat? I think you're a witch or a warlock. We're going to hang you. Take away your boat license. We're going to, take your stuff. We're going to put you in prison and you'll never tell anybody." And that'd have been the end of the guy right there. You're a heretic. Boom. Done.
So I wonder what the advisor whispered or spoke to the king and queen after they threw him out the first time. Could you imagine what the conversation was to convince them to fund such a project?
Well, and they didn't really fund it a lot. They gave him, one good boat, 2 shitty boats, and a small crew, And
but still back in those days, that was a big deal.
Well, it was. I mean, I shouldn't say that, but like I said, from looking at what he took there and saying, "I'm going to the West Indies to trade, I'm going to find a trade route. And when I go there, I'm going to," and then, the stuff he brought to trade Doesn't make any sense. Then the contract that he signed with the king and queen for all the spoils of whatever he was going to bring back and lands that he was going to find and conquer, that he would get a portion of, didn't make any sense either, considering those lands are inhabited already, right? The lands you're going to are inhabited by the Chinese, the Indians, the Japanese. You're telling everybody that's where you're going, but then you sign a contract with the queen saying you're entitled to those lands if you claim them for me. See what I'm saying?
Right.
That makes no sense. So like I said, and then you didn't bring any trade goods. Well, you look at these guys. They brought swords, crossbows, guns, shields, flags for conquering, staking claims. They had these guys don't look like their intention for trading. They look their intention is for claiming, not trading, anyhow.
Exactly. And that's the point, because the church was behind it, and they claimed it for Spain, which was also for the Catholic Church.
That's right. And they were really big into it. So
and they claimed it for both. It wasn't a single, he did it for Spain. No, he did it for, the church too.
So what I think is that happened too is probably Columbus went back and they sat him down and said, listen, this is where you're going. This is what you're going to find. This is what we need you to do. And gave him, like a manifest of, this is your role. This is the part you're going to play, and you're going to become a rich man. Just do what we say. Because like I said, when the guy in the crow's nest reaches out and says, land ho, I get my $50. He says, oh, I seen that yesterday. Sorry. I just don't want to spoil it. What do you mean? You see, how could you see it yesterday? Anyway, the point is he knew. Okay, so then the question is, now we're going to go to the other side of the world, right? We're going to go to the other side of the world, and we're going to go to China. Now, China, at one point in time, built giant boats, big giant boats, manned with hundreds, up to 600 men at a time on a boat. These were giant boats. They were out to, check things out. This is on because they got to make a point for both sides. Why did the Chinese colonize the Americas too?
And more of the Pacific.
Yes, or more of the Pacific or whatever. At some point in time, the Chinese were out there in giant boats. The one emperor they had was sending men to all the corners of the countries, all the world, mapping. And the Chinese, they did make good maps. They were making maps. Here you go. The thing the Chinese went to Africa and caught a giraffe and brought it back to China, believe it or not, to show the emperor of all the crazy things. How many people, I don't know how many people could be up in the crow's nest at one time. I have no idea, maybe one or two. I don't know. Anyway, the whole point is that the Chinese were out there. They were looking around. They were mapping. They took great details. And they made here's one of the original maps made in 1418. This is a real map. This discovered recently, made in 1418. And look at how much of the world they got mapped. And this is pretty much correctly. Look at here, here's North America, here's South America. Here, well, this was way before Alaska, or before Columbus went to the Americas, and they have both sides of the continent mapped. Go figure that one out. Right?
Well, the fact that they've got all of Africa,
Yep.
I mean, because going around the Horn of Africa, even now, is still a big deal.
Yes.
Because of the difference in oceans and waves and stuff. That's what kept people from going all the way around. And so you got to be able to travel through the straits at the bottom of Africa and South America. And so going around those the tips is not an easy thing, but the fact that they've got the west side of Africa.
Yes.
You could say, well, they followed the coast around India and around everything there and blah, 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 but they went around the tip and up.
Yep. And they might have used them, but this is a pretty good map for 1418. And look at
it's excellent because, it might be slightly out of dimensionally, it might be a little off, but it's correct. And there's the Mediterranean and there's the coast of Europe, and does it show England? I can't.
Yeah, there's some islands up here.
Okay, up to the top left is that little circle there.
Could be.
Yeah, so across from France, they got a little bit of England. So they even got some of England in the deal, and they're on the other side of the planet.
And they knew the world was round. Looking under here, Antarctica down here. Look at this.
Yeah.
On both of them. Anyway, the point is South America, North America, both sides of North America, all the way up Alaska. They got it all right. Here's we'll go to here's a better thing of it. But like I said, for the most part, they know there's land there. That's the whole big point. They know there's land out there. And they know that it's on both sides. It's unmistakable. They knew that the continent was there. Now, why did they not go? Why did they not go over here and conquer? Oh, well, maybe they did. Or maybe they left some remnants. Remember, we looked at the Pacific coastline of the Indians, and what do? They had boats, they had armor, they have facial hair. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They may have been influenced by Chinese. One boat carrying 600 men gets shipwrecked on the Pacific coast. Nobody's coming to help you. And you may be stuck there with the indigenous people, and 600 men could definitely influence the natives, or interbreed enough to cause genetic mutations. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I don't know. They had a lot of ships, but here's the problem. They had all these ships going all around the world, and then of course, what happens? There was a famine in China. The Chinese and the Japanese were fighting, and the new emperor that came into power decided that they were being too much influenced by outside peoples. And so they turned inward and became isolationists for hundreds of years.
The Japanese, you mean, or the Chinese?
The Chinese, yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
They became isolationists, and because they were being influenced by the trade with Europe, they were being influenced by other countries and things like that. So they they sunk all their boats, said, we're going to stick around home, and we're just going to be isolationists. And therefore, all their exploration stuff literally stopped. And so there you go. I mean, like I said, they had maps. They were going out. They were doing their thing. And they basically stopped themselves. Kind of almost on the same, I should say, how should I say this? They stopped themselves almost like the Europeans did when the Rome fell. I think if Rome wouldn't have fell, that they would have kept trading. The Egyptians would have kept building boats and going over there to get, goods and stuff too. And there might have been a whole different, how should I say, interaction with the natives, because as well as I do that the natives had great cities. They built great cities. There was millions of them. Make great trading. But the one thing that didn't happen over in the Americas that happened here was the plagues, the sicknesses that came through, and the Black Death, all of these things that killed off a third of of Europe, the sicknesses that went through, limited people from traveling, and then of course they weren't going across, which meant that the people in the Americas never got that sickness. They never had to go through the plague. They never got the smallpox and all of those things to make themselves strong. So when these Europeans did go over there and bring some of those things with them by purpose or by accident, they were not immune. And then they had to go through their own dark ages, which allowed us, the Europeans, to come in and literally take over the lands and conquer them, because now they are on the downswing, whereas we're on the ups. You see what I mean? They're dying and we're increasing here.
Yep, we're overpopulating the area while they're dying out. How convenient,
Yes, because think about it. In the Roman days, they wouldn't have went over there with guns. They wouldn't have had gunpowder. There would have been none of that. It would have been basically swords and shields against swords and shields. I mean, it would. You see what I'm saying? You'd have brought your Romans over to fight with the 10,000 man army of the natives. You see what I'm saying? And you wouldn't have been able to bring that many people on a boat. Whereas when the Spanish went over there, they went over there. The natives couldn't do anything to them because their spears would hit their armor, and they would shoot their guns and their cannons and scare the hell out of them because they've never seen anything like that. Look at these guys. They had crossbows. The natives had a little twig with a string. They're shooting little arrows. It's like you're talking, technology had advanced so much over here. When it went over there, it was like fighting with a child. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sticks and stones.
Yeah, you got sticks and stones against machine guns. Literally, in a way.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's just my take on it. I don't know what you think, but I think the natives that, would have been things in the Americas for the natives would have been different if we or the Europeans wouldn't have had the Dark Ages, and that the Christianity and the Roman Empire or the Roman Church wouldn't have put an ixnay on it all.
Well, here's one thing too, with the Vikings and them folks going over there, and Leif Erikson and them that we learned it. I don't know. We learned about them some in school, as the first people to actually come to the Americas, and and all them Vikings and everything, but Vikings weren't popular in the Catholic Church.
No.
And but one of the things that had happened over the years was there were priests and monks who had stayed in with the Vikings and taught them. So that they learned Christianity and sort of kept some of their old ways, and Thor and this and that, and Zeus or whoever was their god. But that the Catholic Church wasn't behind them. So, and they were a lot further north. So there were fewer people, but there were still a lot of people. So they were trading back and forth. And sort of like today, there are different countries that trade back and forth. And most of us don't even think about, because they've got this, well, if you've got this, I've got that, and back and forth. Also brought back Christianity back to Norway.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I knew that they were, that they were interacting, and Christianity was moving that away. So, but that's good. But anyway, but the Vikings weren't popular.
No.
And so the rest of the world, and like England, and England had its own thing. I mean, they were fighting with the French and fighting with everybody along the line. So, Spain being a little bit more actually closer to Italy and to Rome physically on the continent, so that they had a more direct connection to the Pope and that kind of stuff. And it had been established longer because of the continent and because of Rome, and because Rome had spread, this and that. And so the fact that it could travel along the Roman roads right into Spain. So my point is that they were ready for it, so Spain versus any of the, we want to claim it before anybody else does.
Yeah.
We want to put Spain on the map, and we want to put the Holy Catholic Church before it's Finland or England, who was still messing around with, whether or not they were Christian or not. And, so Spain, I think the powers that be at the time said, you're it.
Yeah. So, okay. Lucky says something about the natives kicked the Vikings' butts. It was the diseases that killed the natives. The Vikings ran away from Newfoundland. Okay. And there is a story out there. I read it. I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was Leif Erikson, or there was another Erikson or something. Anyway, and it was about how him and the Vikings guys had went to, the Americas, Newfoundland or wherever it was. And they met up with some natives. And they're camped out on the shore or whatever. And the natives came up, and they didn't think because they're Vikings, they didn't give a shit. And they just killed a few of them, right? And the other ones ran away, and they didn't think nothing of it. And when the next day the natives returned, they returned with, hundreds of natives with bows and arrows, and started shooting arrows at the Vikings. And the Viking guys, quickly ran to their boat, got in their boat as the arrows sailed down upon them. Of course, the Vikings put up their shields like they do to protect themselves. And the only one that actually got hurt, I mean, they got away from the natives. But as they sailed away, the leader guy, the Erikson guy, I think it was, I don't remember his name exactly. He was the only one that got killed. As he was raising his shield or his sword, one of the arrows had penetrated their shield, went down and hit him in the shoulder, or under the shoulder, under his underarm. And in all the haste, and fighting and whatever they were doing, he didn't realize it until they were away. And he goes, "Oh, I've been struck," and he knew he was going to die, because then he started coughing up blood. He realized that this was a mortal wound, and he was going to die. And after that, I guess they didn't really go back, because they pissed off these natives, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, they come up by the hundreds with bows and arrows." And, but see, at that point in time, like I said, at that point in time, the weaponry was kind of still equal. You know what I'm saying? The weaponry was equal. You got bows and arrows and swords, but they got lots of bows and arrows and shields. And I'm sure they got sticks or whatever, they got clubs, and the technology was very similar, or the little advanced on one side versus the other, but nobody had guns and cannons and armor to like they did when Columbus went over.
Yeah, well, the big difference was steel. The folks from Europe came over with steel swords, and the Americas had flint and stone clubs.
Well,
So they,
not exactly. See, here's the thing that I want to interject with that. So the Vikings had steel swords. What I'm saying is now the Spanish had armor. They had so much metal that they had armor, and then they had cannons, and they had guns.
I understand. My point is that the difference is that they were still working with stone tools versus steel and metal. That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
that was the advantage. We're coming over here with steel stuff, and you still got flint and and stone clubs.
Yes.
So
exactly, and I think, like I said,
I agree with you, Bob. I was just, yep.
Yeah. But I do think that the natives still could have gave up a pretty good fight because they had the numbers, and it was their home territory. And when a boat comes over and you got, 50, 60, 70 guys versus, 10,000, like that one guy when he met the Incas. And I read about that story where, they killed 8,000 men in an afternoon because, and they didn't lose one guy. The one guy that did get hurt, he got hurt in his hand pulling the emperor off his chair.
Yeah, well, the one of the things that happened, and it was because of the English way of, and the French as well, the way they, and going back to the Romans. So if the Romans came over, they would have like gone together in twos and threes and walked in lockstep in columns, and that would have been their way of fighting because that's the way they were taught. So coming over to the Americas, the Indians are hiding in the trees, and and it was guerrilla warfare compared to the open prairie kind of fighting that the Romans or the Vikings were used to. I think the Vikings were more used to more rugged terrain versus the Romans, who were very strict, especially with their within their armies. This is how we do it, guys, and that's how they did it. So, and later on, when the British were in, they marched in columns, and they got picked. The natives picked them off from the bushes and stuff. They were constantly being ambushed.
Yes.
So, that's how the natives were winning, because they were, and they just should have done more of it.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Off the Hook says it's all hypothetical. Yes, all this that part is hypothetical because we don't know what would have happened because they didn't colonize Newfoundland. There wasn't enough Vikings to go around, and they did get chased off. We do know that. What we do know is what they wrote down in history, but we do know that the important part is we do know that they already knew there was land over here.
And we know that they went. And so it was proof that, there's land over yonder. Yep, there's some folks over there, and they got bows and arrows. And so they learned a lot, and it was an expedition to find out what was over there.
Yes. And like I said,
you never know till you get there,
Like I said, between the church and the kings and queens of the era, they knew there was this land over there. They didn't know what was there or how big it was at that point in time. But I do believe that the church was the controller behind all of that. And I could,
Absolutely, I totally agree. And here's something, why didn't they just send one galleon over?
yeah,
Well, they send a big ship and two little ones. Well, what does that look like if three ships pull into your harbor?
yeah, and
What does that show? A show of force.
yeah, and
You are automatically, you go, God Almighty, they ain't one of them. There's three of them sons of bitch. Oh, what? Holy
exactly.
crap! And they all got cannons on them. What? I mean, the show of force of just seeing three ships compared to one or even two. Sorry about that.
Mhm.
Would have meant to any native peoples who are seeing them come up on the shore, oh boy, look,
Yeah,
whoops.
it does, especially for those natives who've never seen a ship before. Seeing something that huge and big was like probably, oh my gosh, it's 10 times bigger than our canoe. What the heck is that? You
And the
know,
size of the sails and just the entire thing. Yep. But
yes,
and thinking of like, well, why'd they send three so they could bring back a bunch of booty or
yes,
bring back a bunch of slaves?
yes.
So if you only sent one ship, well, why not send a couple of scallywags with them and whatever they can bring back? Well, that's extra. But if we only have one ship, there's only so much we can carry, no matter what it is. We can
Yeah.
only carry so much with one ship.
And then he says, yeah, Scotty Boy says, and then a white man came from it. So you got now you not only have ships that are huge and big with giant sails, you also got white men that show up and you go, I've never seen a white man before. Holy cow.
Right. With a sword and a gun.
Yeah, and
You know,
the thing is they didn't even know what swords and guns were. They were you're probably looking at it going, wow, what's this? Here, can I look down the barrel? Look at his hollow, and whatever. Anyway, enough of my stuff. What do you got for us tonight?
we were a little late on getting on with this, so let me give you the page number, and we're still on the Seneca myths
Yep.
and legends.
Yes.
I do have it pulled up. Give me a second. Let me give you the page number and everything. The name of the story is Cold and Frost or Stone Coat Women.
Stone coat.
Yeah, that's plural. Yeah, what's the page number? I don't see a page number. Hang on. 152 it would be.
Okay. I'm getting there.
And the name of the story is Cold and Frost or Stone Coat Women. And the characters are Hino or Thunder.
Oh, I think I got. I'm thinking.
Genesqua, Stone Coat,
Okay.
Cold and Frost.
I think I am here.
Are you still getting there?
In just a second. Hang on. There
In
we
fact,
go.
a lot of so-called Vikings invaders are really just traders, and some settled in Scotland peacefully. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It depended on who was in the boat. It's like, somebody comes up and you wave your hand and go, hi, come on, share the fire. Or you shoot, you kill a couple of them. You piss them off right away. And, so there are those folks who I'm sure went as traders, after Leif Erikson and said, there are folks over there you think nobody else went. But in history, nobody else went.
That's right. That's
But that don't mean that folks didn't go. So there's a lot of history that they don't want us to know, and so because of the Catholic Church, they don't.
yeah.
So
How come everything always boils down to the church? It makes you wonder if the things going on today are because of the darn church too. You know?
Oh yeah, a lot of it is.
Still working on it.
Having went to parochial school all my life and having learned the Catholic way back in the day, and then the Catholics conquered this, and then the Catholics conquered that, and then the Catholics did that, and the Pope did this, and it's like, it was all about the church. It was all about the church. Little settlements, big towns, it was all about the church. The bishop in the town, and then he had so much control of the church and the people and stuff. It's absolutely amazing how much control the church had for these last 2,000 years. It's absolutely amazing, and they've lost it now.
Well, and that's
the rebellion. So,
and that's what I'm wondering: did they lose it, or are they still kind of in control in some way? Or
nope.
Are they just prepping us, for the next big thing? Like, they're telling us, if there could be aliens, if there was aliens, we'd baptize them too, we would. So, they're kind of always hinting that, because if the aliens showed up tomorrow, they don't want to be on the far end of the stick saying, oh no, there's no such thing. But if that happened, if aliens showed up 200 years ago, they would have thousands of people out there with pitchforks trying to kill them, because they would say those are demons, those are devils from hell. The church said so. I know what a demon is, and that's what it looks like. Let's kill them all. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And now people would be like, well, that's an alien. That's and they probably wouldn't. They'd be afraid, but they wouldn't be like, I'm getting my pitchfork. I read the Bible, and then I listened to the church, and they said that there's no such thing. It's only demons, devils, and, whatever. And this has got to be one of them.
Well, within the Catholic Church, back in the 16-somethings, there was a priest who was visiting the Vatican, who had a bunch of visions, and he wrote them all down. And they got lost within the archives in the catacombs under the Vatican. And about 100 or so years later, another priest going down there rummaging around found these things and brought it out to light. And there was a lot of priests that would say, no, we can't talk about this, because in the last 100 or 150 years that we lost this thing, his prophecies were right about everything up to this point. We can't talk about this because he might be right about the rest of this. So it got covered up until some other folks later on within the Catholic Church found it and said, no, we want to make this public. So the Catholic prophecies say that this is the last Pope. Okay. Yep. And so, but with that said, within the Catholic Church now, recently, the real Pope died a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And they made no big stink about it, nothing about where he got buried, nothing. Yep. Nothing. There was no big fanfare that the Pope actually died. Now, the guy that's in there is a Jesuit. The Roman Catholic Church disowned the Jesuits over 200 years ago.
Yep.
And said no. So now there's a Jesuit who is supposed to be the Pope. Now, within the Catholic Church itself, they are saying he is not the Pope. Francis is not the Pope.
Yep.
So there is a big explosion within the Catholic Church. And a lot of Catholics, and I would agree with this, I've seen the current Catholic Mass kind of stuff, and it's so weird. I feel like I went to some kind of Wiccan thing. But, as an altar boy back in the early 60s and into the 70s, that there are a lot of the Catholics that want to go back to the original Catholic Mass. And the Pope Francis has more or less excommunicated anybody who would go to one of the original masses and not conform to the new one. So in this long study of things, a few years back now, it's 10 or so, that within the Catholic Church, they wrote a new Catholic Bible and told all the Catholics, you must get rid of, this is the part that really upset me, get rid of your old Bibles because they're no longer any good, and get the new Catholic Bible. And so they pretty much chastised an almost 2,000-year-old Bible and said, no, it's no good anymore. So in Revelations, it says, he who changes the word of God shall be written out of the tree of life. Mm-hmm. And it's like in the last chapter of Revelation. So they changed the Bible and tried to get millions of Catholics to go along with them.
Yeah.
So there's a big battle within the church and in a way within Christianity, but within the Vatican and the rest of the world, it means a lot of money.
Yeah.
It means a lot of control in a lot of ways that people have no idea.
Well, I know. I totally agree. Yes, I totally agree. I totally agree with that.
And in a short way, that is absolutely the reality of it. People might want to say, well, I don't know, Dave, you're speaking out of turn. No, just do a little checking on your own. It's kind of obvious what's going on.
It is. Yeah. It's out there. You just got to look. Most people go through life with blinders on, never hear about it, and then just go, oh, well, So.
Well, for someone like me who, left the Catholic Church, to see the fight to go back to origins, to go back to something that they considered sacred, that they feel the Mass and the liturgy and what's going on within the Catholic Church now is a heresy. And I would agree with that. I might go back to a Catholic Mass if I knew it was the old way. I might even be an altar boy. I know when to shake the chimes kind of thing, and I would go back to Mass, maybe not every day, weekend or whatever, but but to go to a Mass now, no.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, well, our time is ticking away. We had a good chat with all that tonight.
Yeah, that's because we missed last weekend. And we haven't chatted in 2 weeks, so forgive us old men, well, at least me, for a sidetrack, but hopefully that might help some of y'all out and like, what the hell is going on like now? Well, that's what's going on now. There's a war going on in Israel, but the war that's going on inside the Catholic Church, ain't nobody got out their guns yet. But there's a big war going on.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't no rockets going off, but there's a big war going on. So anyway, let's go back to this story. I'm sorry, I got us sidetracked.
All right, it's all you now. There you go.
All right, let me reintroduce it. Oh, come on. Sorry. I got things kind of rigged. I'm looking at ladies and gentlemen, I'm using my cell phone as a camera because I still can't get my computer to work. But I'm using the computer to read the story from. So, and everything's just set up here precariously. Here we go. Cold and frost, or stone coat women. Once, 4 men started off on a hunting expedition. They went in canoes up a large river. These men were the first men to make a canoe. When the chief of the party said, "We will land at Kingfisher's place," the men were glad, for they had been out a number of days. After they had drawn their canoes to the bank, the chief said, "Each man must do his best. must bring in all the game he can. The next morning, the chief asked the sun, the moon, and the stars to help them and give them success in getting game. The men were good hunters, and soon they had plenty of meat. Then two of the party said, "We are going farther into the forest to hunt for elk." "You must be careful," said the old man, "and not go too far away from the trail. Something might happen." One of the men was stubborn. He was always wanted his own way. He wouldn't follow the old man's advice, but he went farther than he had intended. When night came, all the party returned to camp except the stubborn man. And as they gathered around the fire, they talked of him and said he must have gone far into the forest. The man traveled all day. When night overtook him, he built a fire. After a while, he heard voices, and looking across the river that was near where he had camped, he saw two women and a baby. The baby was crying. One of the women sat down and nursed it. The man was glad that there were people around. Soon, one of the women noticed that there was a man on the opposite side of the river, and she called out, "How did you cross, brother?" It seemed strange to him that he could hear her words from such a distance, but he told her to come straight toward his fire. Again, the woman asked, "How did you cross, brother?" And he repeated, "Come straight toward my fire." She asked the third time, and the third time he answered, "Come straight toward my fire." He began to be frightened, began to think that maybe there were stone coats, though they looked like women. The younger woman asked, "Can we stay all night by your fire?" "If you come over, you may stay by my fire," answered the man. Looking sharply at the women, he knew how they were not human beings. One said to the other, "If we go higher up, we may find a place to cross." And they started. Soon they came to the log where the man had crossed. When he saw them coming, he ran some distance downstream, crossed at a ford, and went to a point opposite his fire. When they came to his fire and saw that he was where they had been, one called out, "Why did you run away from us? Nothing will happen to you. Come back. We won't harm you." One of the women picked up his tomahawk and drew her finger along the edge of it. "I wonder if this would take a person's life," said she. "Yes," called the man, "it would take anyone's life. Put it down." She laid it down. They urged him to come to the fire. When he refused, they were angry and were determined to get at him. They started for the crossing, saying, "Wait where you are till we come over." "Very well," answered the man. But when he saw them crossing, he ran to the ford, and when they reached the place where he had been, he was on the opposite side, by the fire. The women couldn't walk side by side. One followed the other. The younger woman carried the baby. When they saw the man standing by his fire, the elder woman called to him, "A time will come when I will get at you." "You kill people," said the man. "You are not able to kill anyone," replied the woman. "I'll show you what I can do," said the man. He drew his tomahawk and struck a rock. Great pieces split off. I think he can kill us, said the woman. Picking up his bow, the man aimed at a tree. The arrow went straight to the mark. The woman, seeing his skill, was astonished and thought, he is a man to be feared. That must be Hino, thunder, said the younger woman. He is dodging around, said the elder, but I will kill him. She was angry because he tried to keep away from them. When the man saw the woman recrossing the river, he went into the river and under the water. They couldn't see him. He stayed in the river till daylight, and then he started off toward the camp where his companions were. He was a swift runner, but midday he heard a voice say, now I have caught you. When he knew that the women were behind him, he did his best, but his strength was failing. Finding that he couldn't escape by running, he climbed a tree. He had just reached a place in the thick branches when the elder woman came and stood under the tree. Her daughter, who was carrying the child, ran up. The mother nursed the child and then said, we must hurry and overtake him. Stonecoats, because of their clothing, couldn't look up, so the woman didn't see the man. When she wanted to know how far away he was, she took a tiny finger out of her bosom and put it on the palm of her hand. The finger stood erect and pointed straight at the man. That minute, the man slipped down, snatched the finger, and ran off. The finger was of great service. The man could run faster. It was an advisor also and pointed out the road to be taken. The man consulted the finger to find how far he was from camp and in what direction it was. The finger raised a little and pointed in a certain direction. After he had ran some distance, he consulted the finger again. It hardly rose from his hand. He knew that he was near his comrades. When he reached camp, he ate, regained his strength, and when told his story, but he didn't tell about the finger. The chief of the party said, we must gather up our things and go home. When the men were in their canoes and were pushing away from the bank, they saw a woman coming. She was crying. When near enough, she called out, give back what you have taken, and you will be successful. If you return what belongs to me, you will have good luck. What did you take from her? Asked the chief. Whatever it may be true, but that we will have good luck if you give it back. The man drew out the finger and showed it to his comrades. Let her have it if she will promise not to molest us again, said the chief. The man put the finger on the palm of his hand and reached it toward the woman as far as he could, and she reached to get it. She slipped, fell into the river, and sank. They saw only bubbles. Let us be off quickly, said the man, and they rode away as fast as they could. He became very expert in hunting, for he always consulted the finger. When he put it on his palm and asked where the game was, it rose and pointed in the direction the animal would be found. And as long as the man lived, he had a supply of all things good to eat. How about that one for a story?
That's a good one. That's
know.
that's a good one. All righty. Do you have a card for us or not? Yes.
I can. I didn't have a chance to get at it earlier, but how much time? Where are we on time?
We got 10 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. I'll pull just one if the spirit will let me.
Yes.
I hope everybody out there is doing well.
Big
I hope,
Justin is in the house.
who's
And
that?
Big Justin. And Rich Hearted says quality tail, Hawkeye. Quality tail.
Thank you, Richard. It's always good to see Richard around.
And
He's a friend of a friend. Thank you, Richard.
there you go. There you go. BTW 70s in the house. Mary Wins is in the house, and so is Michelle Can Am Free.
Okay, so let me ask this, Robert. Hang on a sec. Okay, everybody out there in the chat room and all. What kind of card do you want? what kind of message do y'all feel is, because that's what I'm going to be taking into this, okay?
Yeah.
So what kind of card do y'all want?
What kind of card?
Put it out there in the universe and let me see how good I am. Wow, it's like dead for the moment. Whoops, here we go. Had to go ways down in the deck.
Michelle recorded a owl in her backyard last night. Maybe you got an owl card there for her. Scotty says skunk. We haven't had skunk.
No, but I do have two that I haven't had in a while. And they're, I hate to say it, I wasn't thinking about it, but they're more related, in a way, they're more related to me because the Null trademark thingy is supposed to be the porcupine. And one of the cards I got is upside down porcupine. And the other thing is me and my neighbor were talking about the otter and the family of otters that live on the river behind us, you know, with our adjacent properties and of seeing this otter. So the other card was the otter card. So, you know, I promise that's not what I was thinking. But here, let me get the book. They're both interesting cards, so I'm sure that, and we haven't pulled them in a while, so an otter is very interesting in that it's playful. So I don't know which I pulled first, so I'm going to start with the otter.
Okay, otter.
The otter is woman medicine.
Ooh, woman medicine. That's for all you women out there.
See, so that's what
women are big medicine.
They were asking for a card, and so here's women medicine, woman medicine. Otter so playful, coquettes by the stream, the medicine of women, the realized dream. And having seen the otter play up and down the river, and that face right there, that big one.
Yeah.
That time I've talked about this before, but I did a ceremony down on the river all night, and when at early dawn, barely could see, this otter looked up from the river about 2 arm lengths away and just popped up out of the river and smiled and went back down.
Huh.
So, you know, the playfulness and connectivity to me with otters in the land, and both me and my neighbor were, you know, some of you in the chat know Miss Sheila. Well, it's her husband, Ricky, and we were talking about the otter, and she's seen the otter too. So to be able to share an otter and the playfulness and how they act and such, it's just a blessing. So here we go. Woman medicine. The medicine held by Otter is a set of lessons in female energy. This applies to both men and women, as all of us have female sides. The otter's hide is very often used to make medicine bags for powerful women because it represents balanced female energy. Otter is very caring of its young and will play for hours performing all types of acrobatics, and they do. And it's fun to watch them, especially like live and in color in your own river. It lives on land but always has its home near water. The elements of earth and water are the female elements. At home in both of these elements, Otter is the personification of femininity, long, sleek, and graceful. Otter is the true coquette of the animal world. Otter is always on the move and is very curious. Unlike other animals, Otter will not start a fight unless it is attacked first. This joyful little creature is adventuresome and assumes that all other creatures are friendly until proven otherwise. These character traits are the beauty of a balanced female side, the side of ourselves that create a space for others to enter our lives. That's important. It's the side of ourselves that create a space in our lives for others to enter without a preconception or suspicion. Because there's too many people nowadays like, well, I don't know if I should trust that person. Well, I don't know whether or not. Well, Otter just says, come on in until you prove me wrong. Okay? Otter teaches us that balanced female energy is not jealous or catty. It is sisterhood, content to enjoy and share the good fortune of others, anchored in the understanding that all accomplishments are worthwhile for the whole tribe. Otter people express joy for others. Long ago in tribal law, if a woman were widowed, her sister would offer her own husband to the widow as a lover to keep her from drying up and not using her creative urges. This is Otter medicine. Envy or the fear of being replaced has no space in Otter's balanced understanding of sharing goodness. Woman energy without games or control is a beautiful, beautiful thing and an experience. It is the freeness of love without jealousy. It is the joy of loving other people's children and their accomplishments as much as you love your own. It may be a time to examine your own feelings about sharing the bounty of your life with others. Otter may be saying that the finer qualities of women need to be striven for in both men and women. I would agree with that. So that a unity of spirit can be achieved. You know, there's so much division in the world these days, you know, and we don't know what's a woman or a man anymore and who's going to give birth to what, you know. But so in the spirit, in the unity of spirit, so in so many ways, we are so far off the mark of unity in the spirit in this way. There is no male-female balance anymore. It's them or they or something like that. They can't even identify with. So are we out of whack? Yes. So in this way, this would involve the destruction of jealousy, and that's what's going on. These other thems or theys are jealous of the rest of us. And all of their acts of anger would stem from that fear, because that's all the anger and signs and finger pointing and screaming, you know. It would mean keeping a Hawkeye on your ego and maintaining total trust. It would mean a world full of people coming together to honor the right of each person to be. Now, most of us, a lot of us agree that, well, if you want to wear your hair that way, okay, it's your choice, but, you look like a dumbass, but, you can wear your hair that way. But, don't go around saying, you've got to like my hair. It doesn't work that way. If you have drawn this symbol, Otter may be telling you to become the playful child and to simply allow things to unfold in your own life. It may be time to stop your addiction to worrying. That's an interesting statement right there. Otter also teaches the importance of not hanging on to material things that would bind you or become a burden in your life. And looking at how you can learn from Otter's habits, you might look at the joyfulness of the receptive side of your nature. Have you given yourself a gift lately? Have you received any messages in your meditations? Become Otter and move gently into the river of life. Flow with the waters of the universe. This is the way of the balanced female receptive energy. Honor it. In doing so, you will discover the power of woman. Well, first of all, you have to understand woman versus them, they, or whatever other pronoun. So you have to believe in that. And men, we have to understand that as much as we might want to argue, we have a feminine side. That's just all there is to it. It doesn't mean we got to put on a dress or makeup, but, we need to address the feminine side. Now, porcupine, upside down porcupine, number 12. Porcupine, remind me of innocence again. With every man a brother, each woman a friend. So porcupine is innocence. So you have, female energy in the innocence of porcupine. The south of the medicine wheel is the place of childlike innocence and humility. It is the home of playfulness like the otter, and the position of porcupine on the medicine wheel of life. Porcupine has many special qualities and a very powerful medicine. The power of faith and trust. The power of faith contains within it the ability to move mountains. The power of trust in life involves trusting that the Great Spirit has a divine plan. Your task is to find that pathway that is most beneficial to you and that uses your greatest talent to further that plan. Trust can open doorways to the creation of space. And Otter said, allow yourself to have space for others to enter. The space thus created allows others to open their hearts to you and to share their gifts of love, joy, and companionship with you. So there's absolutely a tie between those two, in my humble opinion. If you were to observe porcupine, you would immediately notice its quills. These quills are only used when trust has been broken between porcupine and another creature. Much like otter, ding, 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 porcupine is a gentle, loving creature and non-aggressive. When fear is not present, it is possible to feed a porcupine by hand and never get stuck by its quills. Through understanding the basic nature of this animal, you may come to understand your own need for trust and faith. Trust and faith. Same thing with otter. And for becoming like a child again. Otter was childlike, right? In today's society, this is a needed reminder to honor the wonder of life and the appreciation of each new day as an adventure of discovery. And then there's a long story about how Porcupine invited the bear to play with the log. And she goes, well, you're just an old fuddy-duddy. And he finally got to thinking about it and said, you know, Porcupine, maybe I will play with your hollow log. And so she says, why, Bear, you're never too old to play. If you forget what it's like to be a cub, you'll always be an impatient and gruff as you are now. The old bear looked at Porcupine and began to feel something move inside him. He started to remember the games he played as a cub. Joy started to live in him again. Little Porcupine, you have reminded me that in becoming strong and seeking answers, I got caught in trying to be an intellectual. I became afraid of what others would think if I dropped my mask of gruffness. I was afraid they wouldn't take me seriously anymore, said the bear. You have taught me that in being a fuddy-duddy, I was causing others not to care for me. Thank you. I'd love to play with this old log. So now contrary, because Porcupine's upside down here, in pulling the Porcupine card reversed, you are giving yourself a timidly warning that you cannot win the game of life if you are too serious. In some area of your life, you may be feeling hurt or afraid of trusting again. It is possible that life has recently dealt you a hard blow. If this is so, it is time to begin again by placing faith in your ability to overcome the lesson with joy. Are you willing to trust yourself? If so, you might begin by writing down the feelings that come out of the situation. How can you, as an adult self, comfort you, the child within, and teach your inner child how to have faith and trust again? The ill-dignified porcupine is belly up with its quills stuck in the ground. This is a rather defenseless position. You may be forcing yourself to be vulnerable so that you can regain your hope and trust. Perhaps you need to roll over to get your tummy patted. This position could therefore indicate that you are ready to accept a little love from others. In any case, if you are not willing to trust again, this card is forcing you to look at why, or at why not. So those are our two cards for tonight, and they were definitely linked. Wowzers.
Yes, that is for sure.
They were definitely linked. So, you know, Otter is always about joy, and it is true. And I was listening to a comic the other day making a remark, and I can't remember who it was or what I was watching, but they were saying, you know, with all of the strife and everything going on in this life, and the Israelis and the Palestinians and just all the other stuff, it ain't just them. But with all the chaos and everything, you know, so many people are downtrodden and depressed, and you know, and we can't stay there. We can't live in depression. We can't live in the chaos. And his position was simple. He said, with all this that's going on, we still need to laugh. We still need to have comedy. You know, just him speaking, he said, not just me as a comedian, but we as a nation and we as a planet, we need to, you know, to keep laughing. We need to come out of our sorrow and face it with laughter. And I've seen several other folks who are just, you know, talking about this same thing, that, you know, absolutely, you know, and in some ways too, because of many people have gotten hurt over some things over the last couple of years, and with some of these doctors and things talking about the shots and stuff, and how those of us who chose not to were probably smarter than, we were given credit. Um, the fact that other people have gotten sick and are still getting sick and things like that, and that the truth is actually coming out, and that people are like, I'm sorry I yelled at you. I'm sorry I criticized you, and now I wished I had listened to you, maybe, about our choices and so forth. And so, but with these truths that are coming out, people are starting to trust other people more now than they are the politicians or whomever. And they're starting to turn around and go, you know what? Them folks lied to us. Them folks lied to us.
Yep.
Wait a minute. Them folks lied to us. And then not for me, but for all those folks, oh, you're in the wrong, and oh, you should have done this, and oh, two masks is better than one, and and then to find out, wait a minute, all of that was just nonsense.
Yeah.
So learning that is been a big deal for folks.
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. That's the thing is you can only cover up something for so long, and then the truth, the people are going to wise up, and that's just what I was talking about tonight. There is there was this stuff was known, then all of a sudden somehow it got covered up, and then they used that against the people for hundreds of we're talking hundreds of years of a cover up.
Yeah.
Because there was today you can barely get away with a year or two of cover up before people start wising up. They were saying the other day, when this all happened, 60 to 80% of the people got the jibby jab, and today, only 2% of the people have gotten the booster because they were just refused to do it because they've all wised up. And, hey, last time I had that happen, I got sick and didn't do me any good, and blah blah blah. I'm not doing that again because I can read in the paper all that information is wrong. I did a little research, and you know what, you're wrong. That doesn't work that way. And now, but it's like you said, it's the same thing then as it is now, just that you can't hide it for anything forever. It's gonna come out.
And to that point, and I had my last video that I did, I discussed the beheading of children and this and that. And to come to find out that other reporters have gotten in to talk to some of these Israeli troops themselves, and no one on the ground has seen any dead babies. Well, maybe from bombshell, but nothing beheaded, nothing like what was reported.
Yes.
And so already, but maybe there weren't all these thousands of women or hundreds of women who were raped. Well, wait a minute. So they made some of this stuff up, and it's already coming out. It's like, wait a minute, so they had me convinced, they were over there killing babies, and, back in the day, there were in Africa, there were people who were walking down the street with machetes, just lopping people's heads off, and I mean, just unbelievable. So are there barbaric things that people can do? Absolutely. And we've seen it in the past. Are these people capable of doing that? And so, I stand against that. Hopefully, obviously, but the propaganda, absolutely. So, but here's the thing. So right now, if you were to speak against, the dead babies, they'd go, oh, wait a minute, you're a conspiracy theorist. Oh, you're supporting Hamas. Now, wait a minute. No, I'm supporting the truth. And apparently, a lot of independent reporters are over there talking to the ground troops, and ain't nobody been able to verify the dead baby thing yet.
Yeah.
So
I totally agree with all that. Anyway, our we've gone our 2 hours plus, so
our time is up.
Yeah, we got to get going. I got to go to work tomorrow. That's
okay. Yeah. All right.
But anyway, thank you.
Love you.
And thank you everybody for listening. Everybody's getting tired too, so they're saying good night. Yeah. Thank you for being on your phone tonight, making our 99th show. And next week, 100 shows. We're going to have to celebrate.
Don't know what it means, but 100 shows.
It's going to be a humdinger.
Well, I love you all, and thank you all for being who you are. And cheers. Thank you, Robert.
Oh, thank you. And with that, remember, everybody, go out and do something nice for yourself, for your neighbor. Let your cup overfloweth to everybody around you, because you want to be the frequency you want to receive, everyone. Love you all. Peace, everybody.